21. The Marmalade Patch. Every year in late fall, Susan starts the plum puddings. At the same time, she puts up a good batch of assorted marmalades for the winter. With all those citrus fruit seeds beckoning from the kitchen butcher block, I could hardly resist raising a bit of company for the first little lemon tree standing bravely alone of its kind at the edge of my now lush jungle that had started it all. Selecting a variety of the seeds left from Susan's preserving endeavors, I started what she was later to nickname the Marmalade Patch. The citrus fruits are a big family, and I was able to pick out and plant lemon, lime, grapefruit, and orange seeds. I thought I had a fairly representative collection till I saw the jar of citron Susan had sitting on the sideboard. The fine print on the backside label informed me that citron, which I had always supposed was just a variety of candied lemon peel, was in fact a distinct fruit. Actually, the citron is cultivated almost exclusively for its peel, a rather unusual procedure. I can't think of any other fruit raised for its superior exterior instead of its interior. The citron was one of the earliest citrus fruits to become part of European gustatory culture. It was introduced to the Mediterranean as early as 300 BC by the Arabs. In contrast, the now much more popular lemon is not presumed to have reached the same region until about 1100 AD. Why this difference in traveling time across arose is hard to imagine, since both fruits originated in Southeast Asia and both went to Europe by the Mediterranean route of the Arabs. The lemon, citron, and orange originated in more or less the same Asian area, but not all the citrus fruits came from there. The grapefruit started out in the West Indies, the mandarin in the Philippines. Whatever their origin, citrus fruits of every kind are now cultivated almost around the globe in a wide belt spanning from 35 degrees north latitude to 35 degrees south latitude. And in making the round, they have managed to grow in almost every conceivable kind of soil. They prefer a loose, sandy loam, however, and I decided on a soil mixture of half potting soil, half humus, and a good handful of sand for my citrus pots. After rinsing the seeds off with tepid water, I laid them in their beds and covered them with an extra half-inch layer of humus, working it down snugly around the seeds by watering. Young budding citrus plants cannot tolerate a drought. In addition to the regular twice-weekly watering of the pot, the topsoil should be sprayed with a bit of water every day. If the leaves develop a wilt caused by underwatering, they can't be counted on to recover miraculously like the Jerusalem artichokes. A drought-wilted young citrus will probably expire from shock. Still, on the whole, citrus plants are among the easiest of after-dinner plants to grow. The majority of commercial citrus plantings are left fully exposed to the sun. A shade crop, a quick-growing cover growth to protect species easily sunburned, is not usually thought necessary even above the young trees. Once set out in the fields, the plants are left unshaded, even though in their native habitat They would usually be protected by a canopy of high forest trees. This easy adaptability of the citrus orchard to varying light conditions is handy indeed for the apartment dweller. It permits him to place the plants almost anywhere. In fact, I have some growing where they receive no natural light at all. There is on the market a fluorescent bulb called Grolax designed specifically for plant light. Although its operating life is unpredictable, I had one that expired on me after 2 hours, which was frustrating since there is no guarantee and the bulbs are on the expensive side. It is excellent for growing plants just about anywhere, including the closet if you run out of space. If you can't get a Grolax, successful plant lighting can be achieved by a combination of regular fluorescents, one bluish and one reddish. The one thing to be taken into account in placing fluorescent lights for your plants is that the light is considerably weaker at the end of the tubes than at the center. Since my citrus fruits are more adaptable, I usually put them at each end and give the center of the stage to my more light-hungry plants like the papayas. Fluorescent lighting is by no means the only artificial light that can be used. Citrus grows well under an ordinary 75-watt or 100-watt incandescent bulb kept 1 to 2 feet away from the apex of the plant. In fact, I found that germination and early growth of most tropical plants is aided by keeping a 75-watt lamp burning for a total of from 14 to 16 hours a day, about a foot above the seedlings. Although a table lamp does not provide the full range of light needed for most plants to do their best, they will grow under it, and seedlings seem to appreciate the extra warmth given by the incandescent light bulb, especially in winter. But make sure the plant is not so close to the bulb that its leaves dry out, and don't forget to compensate for the quicker evaporation of water from the topsoil under the lamp's heat. Most citrus trees begin to take an interest in blooming along about their 5th year. The fruit won't ripen till 10 to 16 months after the flowering. Although privately I thought my chances of getting to pick any fruit from my indoor trees were pretty slim, at least I would have plenty of time to check into commercial harvesting method before the patch decided to surprise me by coming into fruition. Oranges seem to be the most prevalent orchard-grown citrus species, so I chose them to investigate. Quite often I learned oranges are picked when green, but this doesn't mean they are unripe. Oranges can't be induced to after ripen or go into ripening after they are picked, the way some fruits, for instance the banana, can. Contrary to their name, oranges are frequently green or yellowish green when fully ripe. To give them a better marketing image, the oranges are placed in a degreening room where once more my dubious ally ethylene pops into the picture. Ethylene is used to accelerate the natural process known as degreening, the decomposition of chlorophyll, leaving the orange pigments, carotenes, and xanthophylls in the rind as the dominant color. So far so good. Chlorophyll I knew all about from the days of the ad campaign demonstrating its use in everything from toothpaste to shoe polish to eliminate odors. Carotene I remembered from high school botany were in carrots, a much more appropriate place for them than oranges, I'd think, and were good for the eyes. Xan- Xan- Xanthophylls I'd never heard of, but I was willing to take the Degreena's word for its powers, assuming it had probably been researched pretty carefully by hordes of aspiring corporate fruit company botanists. However, things get even more complicated after the degreening room. First, the oranges are scrubbed, then they are washed with soap and antiseptic, then they proceed through a moisture eliminator. Then, if they are still not orange enough, they are dyed, passed through another antiseptic solution, and waxed. That was the point at which I chucked my investigation. With a sense of relief, I turned to the remembered pleasant simplicity of orange groves in Morocco. Once, after spending a night on the desert, I found myself at dawn on the edge of an orange grove on an ideally located oasis. The owner invited me to pick a breakfast for myself, and I spent the morning acquiring a bellyache by twisting the still night-cooled fruit of the trees and devouring them hungrily. Without a doubt, those were the most delicious oranges I've ever eaten, not to mention the most easily harvested. Surely I could manage to pluck and enjoy the unprogressive oranges from my own trees in the same simple, old-fashioned way. The price of progress seemed, by comparison, too complicated and too high to pay. Another casualty of mass production is the orange wrapper. Only occasionally, in a particularly fancy gift box of fruits, do I ever catch a glimpse of one, and even then, while each orange may be individually wrapped in crisp, crinkly tissue paper with a seal or symbol on it, the beautiful elaborations are gone. I suppose kids can still collect stamps, as for that matter, most of them did in the neighborhood where I grew up. But you'll never convince me that for a little boy a stamp book can ever hold the same bright joy that was contained in my collection of fruit wrappers. I had hundreds of them from all over the world, and they were covered with some of the most ornate and colorful designs I've ever seen. It's a forever lost hobby. Nowadays, most oranges aren't even eaten as oranges, much less wrapped at all. Almost 70% of them are made into frozen orange juice. The leftovers go into producing cattle feed, molasses, and various oils. So much for a new generation of orange wrappers. But back to the generation of a home orchard. My trees had been growing for months before I noticed all my citrus had thorns. Susan had mentioned them one day before, but I had dismissed them as undeveloped leaves or branching attempts. After all, who ever heard of thorny oranges? Nevertheless, stones they have. They also have water sprouts, or at least they're supposed to have water sprouts. I've never found a clue as to where the term came from. In fact, haven't even been able to figure out quite what they are in the first place. All I know for sure is that when they develop, you're supposed to prune them off as they drain growing energy from the main plant. The only and somewhat unhelpful definition I could find of a water sprout was in the volume that warned me against them and read as follows: an extremely vigorous sucker or shoot originating from the trunk or main limb of the tree, especially a fruit tree. The problem with that definition to me was it made the sprout sound more like a branch than anything else, which would imply pruning off all the branches, and that didn't make sense. Whatever the case, I don't think I have any water sprouts on my plants. Maybe they knew they would be pruned and didn't bother to develop. I've managed to fit into my plantation a representative from almost all the citrus fruits available in our neighborhood, including kumquats, incidentally one of the hardiest. Now I'm waiting impatiently for the fruit companies to begin importing a few more distant relatives like the white sapoti and the wampi, especially the wampi. I hear the fruit is nothing special, but I like the name. Somehow it would be neat to have a wampi tree.